Hey, welcome. And this is Chuck Hogan with Your Best Life. And welcome to the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV, channels 250 and 251. Please remember to download both the Zingo TV app on the respective app stores and on iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure to leave a comment. The app is completely free. Zingo TV is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire and Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and all smart TVs 2016 and forward. Oh boy, I am so happy to have you all here with us today. And do I have a treat with you? This man I have known off and on now for, the last 2 decades. The man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Ronny Leber, is not only a television personality, a sportscaster, he's an MC, he's an announcer for world events. But he is one of those people that spends time in helping educate people in honing their craft as to how to be better speakers, better announcers, better MCs, better human beings. Go figure. He is a philanthropist, he's a coach, he's an educator, and most of all, I get to call Ronny my friend. And so, Ronny, thank you for being here today, brother. It's such a pleasure to have you.
Oh, thank you so much, Chuck. What an introduction. I love it. Thank you. And thank you. I'm absolutely thrilled to be here.
Oh, brother, I've known you and your beautiful bride, Elizabeth, for years now. And what is amazing to me is to watch your progress in your journey. And I guess I shouldn't be amazed because I know who you are and how brilliant you are. But I want to help people understand something about you and your journey and what it takes to actually go after your outcomes and goals. Now, just so you all know, we didn't talk about this before, so he has no idea what I'm getting ready to ask him. All right. So, but here's the coolest part. Ronny, I know this about you. You have this insatiable drive. This is a part of you, a core of you. Where do you find your motivations to continue to constantly grow?
Well, that's first of all, beautiful. It's true. We did not actually talk about that up front. So where I actually found the drive was by actually asking myself, what am I passionate about? What do I want to do in my life? And what should my life be about? And I remember there was a time in my life when I was getting done with my university studies, when I thought, well, okay, what do you want to do now? And that's a great question to ask. Maybe I should have asked myself that before I actually started to study at the university. But anyway, better late than never. And I thought, hey, all right, playtime is over. What are you going to do now?
Yes.
And I thought, well, how about doing something that I really love to do? Because I knew I needed to really niche down on something or be an expert in something, because you don't get paid just for being like good at or let's say moderately good at many things. You need to be very good in something specific. And then I thought, well, okay, that's awesome. What is that specific thing that I would love to be an expert in, that I would love to be very good at, or maybe even the best? And then I thought, how about in something that I'm passionate about? I thought, that's awesome. When I'm passionate about something, then I'm really going to love what I do and I'm automatically going to get great. Then I thought, well, but what is that? And so I was like, I need to figure out what that is, because I was interested in many things. But what am I really passionate about? What is it where there's really a fire burning inside? And then I was asking myself questions. I kept asking myself the same questions for weeks and months. It was questions like, what is it that I love to do in my free time? What am I talking about with my friends? What do I spend time on? What is it that moves me emotionally? What is it that already as a little kid that I love? And so somehow, after asking those questions over and over again, I always came back to the same point, that already as a little kid, I was excited and fascinated about events that bring the whole world together, like a soccer World Cup or Olympic Games. And I thought, that's an environment that I would love to work at. I had no idea yet what I would do there, but I thought, that was a why. There was a fire. It was like, in this environment, that would be fun.
Wow. It's so beautiful to hear you say that, because you can feel the enthusiasm and the juice in you. And it's like being childlike and allowing ourselves to go back and really connecting with that almost like sophomoric, juvenile why. It's going, well, we get to be happy and we get to choose what's going to allow us to be happy. We get to choose what we want to call a career. Some people call it a job. I choose to call it a career, because when it takes you further, farther, faster, higher, and you're connected deeply to it, it doesn't feel like work.
Absolutely. And you know what? I had another premises on that. I thought for this thought process, for this brainstorming exercise, or however you want to call it, let's leave the money part out of the equation.
Mm,
Because first, I'm going to figure out what I'm passionate about, what I would love to do. And then I thought, if I'm going to be very good at something, if I might be the best at something, or maybe even the best in the world, I'm going to figure out a way how to monetize it.
love it.
So let's leave the money thing out of the way. Let's just focus on what I'm really passionate about and what I want to do. And then let's figure out how to monetize it.
You know, that's actually a brilliant way to create a segue and some, if you want to call it job descriptions, SOPs around this, is oftentimes the why is what's missing. People will start with the how, they'll even start with the outcome, and they're like, monetization, need money, need that pecunia, that coin. It's like, okay, get it. Everyone has certain needs. And on the other side, we start to find people sacrificing their self-identity, their own self-worth, their own happiness. And I've said this many times in my life, I have yet to meet a billionaire or anyone with substantial monetary means that wouldn't give every penny they had for another moment with a loved one, or another moment as they're on their deathbed, to spend more time on this planet. And so why do we squander time as if it's this fleeting currency that we can just give away to everybody and everything? It's been such an interesting question that I've had. And I'd love to ask you that. What is your interpretation of time, and what does it mean to you?
Well, as we know that time is emotion, and that sometimes time flies. Like when you're in your element, when you love what you're doing, then time moves fast, like an instant. And
Yes.
then there are moments when you are somewhere and you're like, oh my God, this is taking forever. And it could be just 5 or 10 minutes. So spend time in areas in your life where time is flying by, where you really enjoy it. May it be the people that you're with, may it be the activity that you're doing that you really enjoy, just something, or maybe you're growing, or something that really excites you. And I really have the pleasure, since we were talking about also the working thing before, I have the pleasure of really of loving what I do. Like I love to work. I love it. And I'm like, I love to be on stage. I love to entertain people, because for me it's always beautiful to move other people, to change their state. And that's something that I love to do. And if I'm not doing that, then I feel that I'm wasting my gift.
Yes. Yes. You and I have that in common. We spent time in a number of different environments where we had the privilege of creating state-inducing and moving tens of thousands of people and helping them get more connected to self. And that's really, isn't that the gift? The gift is living in your gifts and sharing energy. And it's less about influence and more about connection and connectivity, where now we get to commune with other people. We get to build insane levels of rapport in very, very short period of time. And by consequence, or if you want to call it by happenstance, also get to affect and effect people's connection to oneself. And it's such a beautiful opportunity when it arises. I know that you've been in front of the camera, and you've done television announcing and news simulcasts and interviews with people. What would you say to someone who is struggling with trying to find their purpose and their why? Because oftentimes, I know that you've been able to go through these exercises, and we both studied behavioral sciences in a number of different myriads of environments for years. What would you say is an easy way, so we can have the listeners at home take home something that they can use to really help move them further forward and faster?
First of all, I believe that the reason why some people do not find their why is because they are too hard on themselves. They believe that they need to get it perfect.
Yes.
They believe that if I don't get the right answer, my life is screwed, or I'm not, like, it's over. It's not. At any moment of your life, you have the opportunity and the possibility to take a different direction, to make a decision, to change your life in that moment. And as I was saying before, to find your why, to find your passion, it's really about asking yourself questions.
Yes.
And even if there's not something coming in the moment, ask again and do that process. For me, it took some months, almost half a year. I was giving myself that time. I thought, all right, I know I'm going to be done sometime in the summer with my university studies. So I was starting to ask myself in end of winter, springtime, I was like, okay, what am I going to do? So really put your focus around it and don't try to get it perfect the first time. Just figure out something that really makes your heart beat faster. And even then, when you have figured it out and you're thinking, well, okay, that's awesome, but how am I going to monetize that? Or what can I do with that? Also there, let it come. Just put it out there and expect that there will be opportunities that will arise in front of you because you are putting out the seeds
Yes.
in order to later on reap the rewards.
That's a beautiful way of putting it. I've always had this philosophy that your why is how you need to feel most often. It is that driving force within you that because we know that the human condition is to remain consistent with your identity. And to your point, most people's identity hasn't even been their own adoption program. They've actually taken this on and it's been postulated from the time they were a child all the way through their adolescence. So when you get into university and you're now into adulthood, we have these different designs and now there's world pressures on us as well. The interesting part is, and I love what you said about this, and that is in the monetization side, that the shift happens when we start to cultivate this identity as to this is who I am. This is how I need to feel most often. If that's prosperity, valued, worthy, contributory, gifted, talented, humorous, entertaining, all these things. And I go, okay, and here's the $1 billion question. When you're experiencing any of those emotions, how does it make you feel? And then all of a sudden we all become 3 years old again. It's like, I'm happy. Wow. And how many ways are there to be happy? Well, if I believe this, and this is in the dictionaries, there's 30,000 words to describe emotion. So when people go, there's an infinite number of emotions, I said, no, there's not. There's 30,000 ways, but we use about 30 of them on a consistent basis.
If even.
Yeah, if even. And so we get to identify if we really are being truthful, though, and this is a point you brought up, being authentically real. When you're asking yourself these questions and not expecting perfection, but expecting engagement and being patient and loving enough to oneself that you actually give yourself this opportunity. But what I loved that you said was the monetization side, and I have a belief around this, and that is when we're at that frequency, because that's not a low frequency existence, that's a high frequency existence. Your happiness, your prosperity, your love, your growth, your future, your position, your also your identity, you're going to attract people and opportunities.
And just to be clear, it's not just about like, I'm thinking about it, it's going to happen, and I'm not doing anything for it. That's not what we're talking about.
Exactly.
It's really about expect it to happen, put the effort in, and sometimes it goes very fast. Sometimes it can take a while. And you know, when I started out actually to work in that field, I started to, you know, like a tree that's growing roots, like a small tree that's growing roots. And so I did a lot of empty miles in the beginnings. Like I went to go to lunch with somebody where I knew who is in that environment that I would like to work at. And just, it was a lot of, and he told me actually a story. It took him 4 years to be working in that field where he was working at.
Right.
But it was also, he told me the concept of the empty miles, to actually talk with people. And you don't know if this conversation that you're going to have next, if this leads to something.
Exactly.
But there's another conversation. And at some point, as long as you keep moving forward, you will eventually get there. Don't let yourself get discouraged by not having your immediate goal or your goal immediately.
Well, that's the ticket. So what you're describing is what we call the journey. And it's heading in the right direction. I have this philosophy that when you know your purpose and why, and then you head in a direction, it's any direction that leads you towards feeling this way. And it's remarkable. I heard this saying the other day, and I love this. It says, I love the man or woman who loves to walk, because as they're walking, they're enjoying the journey. The person who only enjoys the destination, once they get there, will stop walking. So if you love walking and you enjoy the journey, you will hit every milestone because you are continuing the journey. And that is the key. And I was like, that's exactly what you're talking about. Setting out and enjoying the journey, the learnings, the lessons. And to your point, when you take time to look around when you're on this journey, that's when you start to see all the opportunities as well. Asking better questions is a big part of this too.
I have a beautiful story around that, actually.
Please.
It was, have you ever run did you ever run a marathon?
Yes.
Beautiful. I did too. I ran my, I did actually two, also as in a number. So my first one was in 2001. And then I thought, if I ever want to run a marathon again, I would love to run the New York City Marathon.
That's
because it's just the biggest one, and it's just amazing. New York is an amazing city, and so that was kind of in my head, like New York City Marathon. That's kind of like a life dream, and also it's not hard. It's quite hard actually to get a starting bib and so on. But anyway, I put it out there. 2018, in the beginning of March, I knew that on the 4th of November 2018, I had my starting slot secured. So I was able to run, and I thought, wow, that's awesome. I was imagining myself running through the finish in Central Park, Manhattan. And that was like the whole time going through my mind. Every time that I was practicing, I put it out there, or training. Then in summer, in August, actually, 3 months before the marathon, I got injured. And so my training was not as it was supposed to go. It was really, in those last 3 months, I only could run longer than 1 hour once. I went every week to the orthopedic, to the doctor. I had treatment 3.5 weeks before the marathon. He told me, if you don't do anything for the next 4 to 6 weeks, everything is going to be fine. I said, well, that's awesome. Just that the marathon is in 3.5 weeks.
Right.
So, but then I did not do anything until the 4th of November at 10:20 in the morning, when I was standing on Staten Island, New York City, and I heard the starting shot. And immediately before that, I thought, in that moment, I actually need to forget everything I believe to know about a marathon.
Right.
Because if I, like everything that I believe in, I shouldn't be here. I should be sitting at home at the couch or doing something else, but I shouldn't be right here at the starting point of 26.2 miles that are ahead of me. So I thought, all right, let's just see where this is going. And I was running in a, let's say, slow but steady pace. So I was kind of getting a roll. And after about, I need to translate this from kilometers to miles. So after about 11 kilometers, so let's say around 6.5 miles, I started that my legs the muscles in my legs were getting hard. I thought, whoa, that's a bit early. Like I'm just basically a quarter into the marathon, and this is a bit early. But let's just see where this is going. Then about a mile or two later, that hardness in my muscles turned into pain, and it was also just a third into the marathon. I thought, man, this is not going so well here.
I saw this going a different way.
Yeah, but anyway, the pain was just in my head. And so I thought, all right, let's just keep moving forward. I'm going to keep moving forward and let's see. Then there was the half marathon point. It was on the bridge from Brooklyn to Queens. And on that half marathon point, after 13 miles, that was when I made the decision, I'm going to finish this today. Because at the beginning, I didn't know if I could.
Right.
But then I said, all right, I'm already in pain, but it's just in my head. And I know as long as I keep moving forward, I will eventually get there. To tell you this, I did not become faster. It did not become easier. And especially the last miles, it was really, really hard. On Fifth Avenue in New York, in Manhattan, like there were 15 blocks running up the hill. at basically just 3-4 miles out.
Mm.
So that was kind of a little bit tough, but I kept saying it like a mantra in my head: as long as I keep moving forward,
Yes.
I will eventually get there. And after 26.2 miles, after 6 hours, 14 minutes, and 58 seconds, I finally crossed the finish line in Central Park, Manhattan. And why am I telling you this? Oftentimes in life, it's like a marathon. As long as you do not move the goal, as long as you know where you want to go, as long as you keep moving forward, even if it takes longer than you expected or that you wanted, you will eventually get there.
Yes. Yes, it's true. And you know, there's so many lessons and so many distinctions in thank you for sharing that, Ronnie. It's beautiful. I know you to be a very resilient and strong person, and you're stubborn as hell, which is one of the things I love about you. So I would say that the destination is one thing. What you kept affirming the entire time you were going through the process was the journey. And there was something that is really imperative that I hope everyone takes away from your story. And that is the consistency of honoring self, and that most of the time, what sabotages us is the story that we're saying in our own mind. That you can have a story of success, you can have a story of failure, you can have an excuse that we make. When you get rid of excuses, you're left with reality. And the truth is that every single challenge, every single pain point, every single problem that we ever experience in life is a blessing. It's an opportunity and a lesson. It all comes down to one thing. How do you need to feel? Because I can only imagine that in the midst of the pain, there was also pride. There was also drive. There was also confidence and fortitude and fire. And it doesn't mean that there aren't those moments of weakness.
There were tears. There was fever, even like fever shocks. But there were tears of overwhelm, of really like, I cannot believe that I did that. Like I was really overwhelmed, and then it was just so beautiful. I was really at the limit at the end. I was really pushing my limits very hard.
Sure.
Because I was also amazed about how far the mind can take your body.
Yes. Yes. And when you know the possibilities, see, oftentimes, to your point, and this is where the world, unfortunately, many people in this world have been settling. They've been living a life of survival and not thrive. And quite frankly, there will be others who will try and take you down and bring you down to a survival level, because it's not that they don't want you to thrive. It's just that it makes them feel inferior because they have an identity that it's okay to straddle the teeter-totter. I have this concept where if you're standing on a teeter-totter and all you're looking at is to maintain balance, I said, there is no balance standing in the middle. And in fact, there's no movement, so you can't measure. There's zero growth. It's what we call a slow, sustained death. That is like survival at the baseline level, where someone's just like barely doing micro movements to just stay in the middle. That's also called the comfort zone. And we know there's zero growth in comfort.
That's not survival of the fittest, it's survival of the weakest.
Exactly. Exactly. And so I have folks and they go, okay, Chuck, so what's your ideology? And I said, massive movement. The only way things get done is to take mammoth action. And yet I also have a belief, and it's a belief I've lived with my entire life. And that is, ordinary things done consistently produce extraordinary results. That when we commit and we actually give ourselves to the process, but not the process for the sake of being the process because we know it fuels the way that we need to feel most often. I said, boy, that is a different fuel of choice. And the purpose and the reason behind it is so compelling. So I know that what's moving can be measured. And that's one of the reasons why I love to continue to move. I know you and Elizabeth are the same way. It's how do we continue this constant never-ending improvement that allows us to facilitate and grow? How do we find the nurturing and the edification and the aspiration when we speak to other people too and go, gosh, if it's a Tom Brady or an Al Gore for you, or, whomever it might be, I feel the same way. I mean, I feel that way truthfully when I speak to you and many others, because I know your heart and your integrity. And it's like, these are not just like-minded people, they're like-hearted people. We share a lot of the same values. And that's why I inspire and I strive for people as often as I can. I say, please, we get to engage with other amazing human souls. So associate to really high quality people, not the ones that are faking it till they make it, but the ones that believe till they achieve.
Absolutely. I agree with you. And you don't want to have toxic people in your environment. You really want to have people in your environment that cheer for you, your cheerleaders.
Yes.
And also that you can cheer for it and inspire you. If you are the, if you have a goal and you're the furthest in your goal inside the room or with the people that you spend the most time with, then you need to get a different peer group. You need to get some people that actually push you there or pull you there instead of you needing to pull everybody else.
That's a huge point. And someone was asking me the other day, they go, how do you get to that level of trust? I said, that's a brilliant question. And it starts with you. You need to be willing to be that vulnerable, that real, that raw, that authentic, so that you're not misrepresenting. You know me, Ronnie, I'm a hopeless optimist. I'm always figuring that there's another way, another level, and that we're all going to get there together. And I also believe that when we collaborate and we conjoin energies and frequencies, that now it becomes an orchestra. It's a symphony. It's not just a guitarist, a soloist, a single player, because that's a lonely existence. And what it also facilitates is less variety. And that is something that's the spice of life. We both married Latin women. And so I know that there's no lack of variety and spice in your life. And
talking about the trust, it also starts with how much do you trust yourself? How much do you trust your own word? How impeccable are you with your word?
And your own worth. Yeah, and your own worth.
Yeah.
There are times when people can be so deprivating and so self-challenging. And admittedly so, I've been there in the past myself. And what I found is that all it does is drop my energy to such a low frequency that it doesn't allow me to be my best. We have this family motto that my children have grown up with this, so it's second nature to them, but it's something I learned from both my Japanese and my Irish grandfather in a different way. They both said it very ironically different, but the same. And they said, you can be doing your best, but never being your best. When you're being your best, you will always do your best. And what's beautiful about that is that it's only acknowledging one simple thing, and that is you're not broken. So be the best you can be. And don't regret the level of effort that you put out at that time, because at that time, you're doing the best that you could with the resources you had. And that doesn't mean that it can't improve. And I was like, gosh, this makes so much sense. And yet there doesn't seem to be any tension when I'm being my best. I'd love to ask you that question for you. What are some of the rituals that you have for making sure that you check yourself and make sure that you're enthusiastic? Because you're a very self-confident person, but I also have experienced you when you've been questioning yourself as well. And I want to honor you for this, because I know you and I had many beautiful conversations about relationship and identity and a number of different things. And that's why I say you're my friend. You're someone I adore and respect immensely, because for that one, if not anything else, the vulnerability. So what are some of your rituals, Ronny, that you use for yourself?
I believe it's really important that you have some rituals to ground yourself, to really to have the compass again pointing north.
Yes.
Where you want to go. And also to have people around you that actually do that if you sometimes get lost. I'm not talking about people that pull you down.
Yep.
I'm talking about people that really are challenging you to be your best. So some of the rituals that I have is, for example, every morning I have a rebounder at home. I love to get on a rebounder. I have a vision board in front of me where I look at my top 4 one-year goals. I look at my power virtues, you know what I'm talking about, Chuck. And I also look at my mission statement, like why am I here on this planet? And also look at some other things like my values and so on that I really go through and to associate with them. Also, I associate with my vision. So basically, what I do is I put on some music. I have my own Spotify playlist for that, and to really get me going. And then I'm starting with the things that I want to achieve or accomplish in my life, and I really see myself as already having achieved it. And that's something that is just beautiful, because then you automatically get associated to that, and then you're in a different state, and in that state you proactively want to do something in order to move closer to that to the desired outcome.
That's awesome.
And I believe also taking your body with you is very important. So also I love to go for a run, I love to go to the gym, so just to clear my head, but at the same time also to take care of my body.
Sure. Yeah, my wife and I do that. We actually work out together, and it's been brilliant. The level of emotion, the connection, because we both know that motion creates emotion. You're a trained dancer and ballroom, and but also have great rhythm and synchronicity and what they call that symbiotic
musicality as well.
Musicality, and so the whole point is that motion creates emotion, and oftentimes people are too sedentary. They're not moving. These little rituals, ordinary things, turning on music. I play music when I'm in the shower. I play music, when I'm brushing my teeth in the morning and getting ready, and it sets a frame.
I got one more ritual that I just that just came to me. I listen a lot to audiobooks.
Yes.
And especially audiobooks, also podcasts, but especially audiobooks. And what I love to do about that, to turn up the speed, but like really turn up the speed. Most people are probably familiar with the term speed reading.
Yep.
Like and then maybe have seen some commercials on TV. Okay, I remember when I was in the US in the 90s, there was a commercial from Howard Berg, the world's fastest reader.
Yep.
And back then he was reading, guess how many pages a minute he was reading?
Oh, maybe 75, 80, 100. I mean, it's
90. Yeah. 90 pages, world record, Guinness World Record. And I was just amazed. And then I bought his cassettes and his videotape and so on. And I practiced. I'm not a speed reader. But what I am, and that's why I actually talked about this, a speed listener.
Yes.
And it was way more easy for me to actually train myself to listen faster. I'm listening to many books at 3 times the speed.
Yep.
So think about it. You have a 6-hour book. You listen to it in 2 hours.
Right.
Or you go running twice, or you do the dishes. And you can do it with no extra time.
Right.
So that is awesome. And that's why the way to do that is to really speed up by 0.2 at a time. 0.2 at a time until you feel comfortable. You might go down again, up again, down again, and you stay there at that speed. Let's say you start with 1.5 or something that you feel comfortable with. Right. And then you go to 1.7. That might be a bit fast, but you really need to pay attention. So you're doing that, but after maybe 10, 15 minutes, you're like, okay, I just want to slow down a bit. You go back to 1.5 or maybe to 1.6, and then you go up again sometime later and so on. And so when you feel comfortable at that level, you go to the next level and so on. And that's how you keep pushing the limits up. And It's awesome because Spotify, for example, or also Audible, they max out at 3.5, and it's possible.
Sure.
It's really awesome.
I love that. That's a great hack. I actually do it for videos, 1.5 to double speed, 1.5 to 2. And it's been great for me.
YouTube maxes out at 2.0. There is a Chrome extension where you can speed it up basically to infinity.
Yeah, which because I like engagement, but I also want to make sure that I don't fry my unconscious mind.
I'm telling you something. First of all, when you're doing that, when you really speed it up, take it with the headphones because you don't want to have any background noise.
Right.
And what I realized at 2 point something, to me, suddenly there came the phenomenon that it was like as if I was plugged in.
Yes.
It was like suddenly like a movie unfolding in front of me where I could really see everything moving and fitting together. And I think this is really awesome that you do not get when you listen to it at a slow speed or at a, let's say, normal speed. But
Right.
when it's really fast, suddenly it's unfolding.
Well, in most people's linguistics, so I call it stream of consciousness. When you're listening at that rate of speed, like when you and I converse, and I know when we've had conversations, we both speak pretty quickly, clearly, but quickly. And the difference is that I hang on your every word, and I know when you and I are having an exchange, we're listening, but there's not a whole lot of dramatic pause in between, especially like when we're really deep in something. And I go, ooh, that's listening for understanding, clarity, and to be able to teach it. That puts it in a different part of your brain as well. So to your point, we're actually taking out what I call all the fluff. At that speed, it creates continuity. The other thing that it eliminates is brain clutter. So you're not listening and then having a intellectual response to it. Much more you're downloading. And I go, I love that feeling that I can absorb information on a consistent basis.
And your brain is able to handle it. Your brain is able to process that. Like, even though you might not believe it, with speed reading, I always got caught up with a certain word or something that I was like, oh, I had to go back to kind of read the word or something. With speed listening, I don't have that. So I'm just like, all right, maybe I missed a word. So what?
I as a kid, I did the Evelyn Woods School of Speed Reading. And what I found out years later, thanks Jim Quick, all these years later, like 2 decades later, Jim's like going, no, because what happens is you get caught up on the words. So your brain is processing the meaning of the word and trying to give it meaning when you're speed reading, and that's what slows you down. So he started finding that when he just took out like all the thes and buts, ors, and they were starting to get automatically eliminated from his mind. But what I love is that when we're talking about this, is that there's no omissions, that you're getting everything, and that your brain is set up to be able to hone and own all that data. And it falls in a very different way. The amount of information, it's kind of like the difference of this, and I love using this analogy. If I give you a WAV file that's 2 gigs, that's a huge file. If I give you an image that's 2 gigs, it could be a very poor pixelated image. So the amount of data space that it takes for a visual image by comparison to an auditory image in your own mind, because computers were modeled after your brain, you have so much more capacity auditorially than you ever have visually.
Yeah.
Something to think about. This is really cool, man. This is what I love about organic conversation, though. It takes you to all these places. The hope of your best life is a very simple one, and that is for the everyday man or woman, there are things that you can take home with you and that you can utilize to help enhance your life. I want to jump to relationships, if you don't mind.
Sure.
And because this is something I know that's so near and dear to both of us. I've been with Julie now for 35 years, and you and Elizabeth have been married now for
more than 4.
I was gonna say going on 5 years.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. And so what would you say is the most, and I'm not gonna say it's one thing because I know it's everything. What are some of the most important facets for you maintaining and having this amazing relationship with your beautiful wife?
Well, first of all, I think the biggest thing that oftentimes gets overlooked is selection. Because if you make a poor choice in the beginning, you're going to have a hard time afterwards. So that's really, and I'm telling you, I was single for a long time, like for 9 years. And it was, for me, it really took some time to find the right person for me. And I feel really blessed and privileged. And then when you decided that this is the person, also here, trust in the other person. Trust is so important for a relationship. Also to not put the relationship in danger, like with maybe like with threatening to leave or whatever kind of things. Like really be present, be there, and don't put up so many rules.
That's a
Ask
big one.
yourself when you're upset or something, ask yourself, what is more important, my rule or the relationship? And
Sure.
yes, there might be some rules that cannot be broken for you. And those rules, if you have those rules, make sure to already check those boxes in the selection process. Because usually it's not that many rules that actually cannot be broken.
Oh, no. No,
So
I mean,
make sure you know what those are, and then make sure if that person fits or not.
those are great distinctions. Oftentimes, too, is it a rule or a want? Is it a need? And there's a big difference, huge difference. There are so many people who are chasing wants. In my perfect relationship, I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this. In fact, I have a very dear friend named Tammy Kling, and I love what she says. She says, words are currency. And it's true, especially to the feminine. Oh, especially to the feminine. They are for masculine, but for the feminine especially. And
Especially as man, oftentimes we're very easy. If somebody says something hard to us, we're like, oh, come on, and we say something hard back. We're like, but we don't mean it. It's forgotten. Then the next day, you're like, okay, so
yes,
whatever. Yeah, it's like basically going out playing around a football, and you might get rough or tough or something. But afterwards, it's like, all right, you shake your hands, you go back in the locker room, and you drink something or whatever. Yeah.
I equate it to sparring. It's like you're actually in the mix with someone. You tag them, and they go, "Oh, that was a good one," and all of a sudden they're hitting you harder.
Yeah.
But the interesting part is, then afterwards you high five, you go have a power shake afterwards or a protein shake, and it's all good.
And with women, it does not come so good when you punch them basically verbally.
Oh no, and they love the counter punch, and they don't forget.
Exactly.
Ever.
They might not counterpunch in a moment, but they might counterpunch 3 years later.
As my wife says, she goes, I'm just going to take that and put it away over here. Okay, thank you. Right next to my heart. And you're like, ouch. Like, really? Oh my gosh. So, no, that's beautiful. I know that one of the things Julie and I always speak of, and that is continuing to have fun together, continuing to grow and share together. It's come to our attention lately from some friends of ours, and they go, you all are like just crazy, like affectionate with one another, holding hands, public displays of affection, hugging each other. And I go, yeah, why wouldn't I? I love this woman and I want the world to know it, because then she knows it.
Also, yes. And really, don't make a secret out of your affection for one another. I remember from the beginning, what actually struck me was how often she was actually telling me like her admiration to me, and also how much she loves me and so on. And that opened up also for me. I was not used to that, but it opened up for me also the opportunity and possibility to tell her the same, and to really have that as a back and forth game in a way, and to just elevate yourself to a totally different level. Also, it boosts your confidence. It feels beautiful, and also it's gonna elevate your relationship to a totally different level.
Well, and cultural variances as well. It's like a lot of times when we date within a certain culture, we'll see different modalities. People, oh, I date Latinas because, or they go Italians and they go, oh, they're so intense. If it's a Japanese, they go, oh, they're so demure and tender. It's like, okay, and we know that there's exceptions to every rule. I know Elizabeth well, and she is a beautiful soul, and you two are so well matched, and it's wonderful to see you both in love.
One more thing actually that I got to say to that. Choose somebody that loves you for who you are.
Absolutely.
Not for what you are, but for who you are at your core. That loves you, that just because of you. You don't need to be a certain way. You don't need to put on a mask or act. You really can be yourself. And if you are yourself at your core and somebody loves you for who you are, that's a jackpot. And of course, that is vice versa.
Oh, absolutely. Huge distinction. And to your point, to carry it a step further, not who they think you will become. There are people who get in a relationship and they think, if I just fix them, if I stay around long enough, if I'm that influence, oh, you can get better. It'll be okay. And I'm like, going, I didn't know I was broken. I didn't know that there was something that needed to be fixed. I thought this was this wonderful engagement. The other part to this too, which is probably equally, if not even more important, is be yourself from the get-go. You know, this whole ideology of, oh, we're dating. And I go, what? Come on. It's like, you are who you are. Anything less than who you are is a fake, a fraud, a facsimile. You know, the 3 F's. And I go, that's not a great way to start. And on the opposite side of it, all it does is steal energy. It doesn't feed your relationship. It feeds on your relationship. That's not a great recipe for longevity. That's definitely not a great recipe for passion and polarity and opportunity and connection. And Julie, God bless her, she said this one time to me, and I'll never forget as long as I live. I said, why me? And she said, because you make me feel safe, secure, loved, and adored. And my response was, that's my blessing, that you allow me to be that man for you. And what a difference. What a difference.
Beautiful.
You know, I love these conversations with brothers like you. I know we have a couple minutes left, but I'd like to ask you this. And what is your definition of modern masculinity in today's environment, Ronny?
Huh.
Well, that's a whole other session, brother. So we're going to have to get back together.
That's a big one. First of all, I believe that in today's society, many kids are being raised to be asexual.
Yes.
To be not in their masculine as a man or not in their feminine as a woman, because society teaches them it's bad.
Right.
But I believe it's totally the opposite. And I'm not saying it's about suppressing a woman or like idealizing a man, or that one is better than the other. It's not.
Right.
It's different. And it's about embracing differences and knowing that, also knowing what it means to be a man, to be a masculine man. And also that's something that also lights up the woman. And when you are in a relationship and both are in the masculine and the feminine, then this is amazing, because this creates polarity. This is creating polarity, which is going to feed your relationship, and which is the thing what you need, because so many relationships nowadays end not because of lack of love, but because of lack of polarity. And that lack of polarity is because you're not in your essence.
No, I agree with you 1,000,000%. It's thank you for that, because there is a lot of confusion. A project I'd love to bring you in on with me, and you don't have to decide now, but I'm just putting it out there. I'm actually going to write a book about modern masculinity, and it's about a multi-generational approach of looking at it from the masculine and the feminine. We need role models in today's environment. We need people in this world that aren't straddling the line. We need people who are actually talking about real love and not just omnipomorphic love of, you know, you can be in 5, 6 different relationships and that's okay. I go, ooh, okay. You can have a lot of friendships, you can all have acquaintances, but when you start talking about having, I'll just say, the confusion between love languages, that all of a sudden it can be very, very interesting concept, and not just personally, but professionally as well. We live in such a beautiful world, and regardless of race, religion, creed, color, ideologies, and belief systems, we all get to do one very basic thing, and that is love, honor, appreciate each other without judgment. Without judgment. We get to. We don't have to. So, brother, it's so good to see you, and I'm so blessed that we had this time together. I would just want to remind our viewers that the show can also be heard on the Spanglish Radio Network. Please check it out for all the news and all the programming. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. Thank you, Ronny. I love you, brother. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chuck. All the best.